Let's have a look at the designer of the Live Apps application for trading commodity. So logging onto Live Apps, you get this screen where you see the application commodity trading, as well as the data elements, the creators or the process starters. I've got two different ones: create a new trader and trade an existing commodity. And then also actions. Actions allows me to do certain actions, for instance, trading or creating new commodities. The data editor allows me to edit the data that is configured on this process we have. So just to briefly review the data elements, I have a trader. A trader is a complex element that contains these fields: the ID, first name, last name, address, as well as created. I have a commodity 1, 2, and 3. These three commodities all point to the commodity component or class with data elements of main exchange, trading symbol, description, quantity, is this a new commodity or not, and if it was created or not. You will see currently I have commodity 1, 2, and 3. Ideally, this should be an array. Right now, it is separate elements, as Live Apps does not provide array elements at this stage. Trade is just a normal field, which is a type of field of this element or class down here, which is trading symbol, the new owner, transaction ID, and the trade complete is auto field. So those are generated by the integration to the service. And then lastly, I've got a case summary that explains the case itself, just a summary of the case, and then a transaction summary, which is just per transaction, the summary that's stored. So those are the data elements. Going back to the application, we can see that I also have my data elements explained. So let's look at the state editor. The state editor explains the different states that a case can go through, from creating a new commodity and trader to when the account is closed. So this is a limited set of states at this stage, but they represent the major steps in the process that we will be executing. So trader created is the first state, so you can only create a new transaction of a trade once you have a trader as well as a commodity, and then you can have a trade complete, so once you've actually done a trade successfully. Transactions is just when you do a request for transactions, and account closed is if you want to close an account. Let's review the application itself. So creators are the following. So I'm going to click on that step, and you can see that I have a process that talks me through the steps where a trader is created. So first of all, a trader is created by editing and adding some information, some data fields. You can see that we have a trader as well as a case summary. On this step, I also need a recipient, which is by default when you create something new, the user that is logged into the system. And then you also have to set the exit state. In this case, when a trader is created, I set the state to trader created. Calculation is a place where I calculate the trader ID. In my case, what I do is I take the first character of the first name as well as the last name, and I concatenate those two, and I create a trader with the initial, first initial as well as last name. Then I have a gateway where I can set whether it is the transaction is created or not. So by default, it will create the transaction. I just have this exit because I need to have a default as well as a conditional field on a gateway. So by default, the first step is create a trader blockchain on the blockchain. That is a service task, and the service is the actual service which I will talk to you about later. That will create a trader. But that's really just creating a trader in the system. For my service task, I have inputs as well as outputs. So the inputs in my case is the first name, the last name, and the trader ID. The outputs is the response status, which I'm not mapping at this stage, and then also the response code. In my case, I sent back a 200 response for successful, and if anything fails, the response from the web service is passed back to the process. And then the exit state is, again, trader created. After the trader is created, we have an email task which just sends out a message saying that the trader was created successfully. And the exit state for the email does not change the actual state. The second creator that I have is to create a trading commodity process. So let's have a look at that. The first step is simply just trading the commodity. If I look at that, again, I've got the name. I have the recipient, which is the same person that is logged into the system. The data elements, which is the trade commodity, the commodity summary, as well as the transaction. You can see that I actually have set the fields as required and optional as I needed to do. And then, of course, the exit state stays the same, trade created, because nothing changes on the step. I leave it as it is. I will, at a later stage, show you how to change this process. Execute trade is where I execute the service to transfer the commodity from one user's name to another name. You can see there is my trade post, which is a service task on TCI. I have inputs, which is the trading symbol, as well as the new owner. I've got the outputs, which is again the status code of the service, and then the transaction ID, which I get back from the blockchain itself. And then exit state is trade completed, although that should probably stay unchanged, because at this stage I do not know whether the transaction was successful or not. That is tested in this next gateway, where I will then set the outgoing message. If it is successful, it goes to a successful transaction calculation. If it's unsuccessful, I go to an unsuccessful calculation. So let's carry on. If the trade was successful, I send out an email saying that the trade was successfully completed. If it was unsuccessful, I sent out an email saying that the trade was not confirmed. And then I also have a last step just to show the user in a work item that the trade was successfully completed. And then I can actually select the user that performs this step in the process. The data is again just the trade as well as the transaction summary. And I do the same thing for an unsuccessful trade. The actions are processes that can be executed against the data that was captured by the creator processes. So the action that I have is a second step. If I look at the overall actions order of the actions, after the creator of the commodity or the trader, I need to create an action that will then create a commodity. So you need a trader to add commodities to the trader.